How bad were things, and are we seeing proper light at the end of the tunnel now, Puneet?
Very difficult to say, but the good news is that from the peak of 4 weeks ago, we are down to almost 20% of that number. And more importantly for us, the national capital, Delhi and Mumbai, have seen a very significant decline in the number of positive cases. And also, Delhi is opening up as of today, and other states, a lot of states are expected to follow by next week, which gives us hope. And we do see a lot of opportunity because of the pent-up demand. And so let's see how this shapes up. But as we speak this morning, it is a bit more optimistic had we spoken a week ago or 2 weeks ago on a Monday morning.
So give us a sense of, but what are we looking at in terms of some of those key metrics that you guys use? What are yields looking like? Perhaps revenue per available room as well, and net revenue per available room as well.
The positive part is that if we compare it to the Q1 of last financial year, then the numbers look much higher than they were last year because we were practically down to zero revenues. But if we look at Q1 of the two preceding years, then you're looking anywhere between 25 to 35% of the top line that you had at that time. Having said that, the industry has had a chance to review its cost base, and there is also an adjustment in the cost base. So I think the industry is better prepared this time, although the numbers of the second wave have been very devastating.
Puneet, how's the industry coping with rising inflation? We've seen higher prices from pretty much oil to raw materials. Are margins getting hit in any way?
Well, the industry is in a very difficult position. It will be fair to say that 16 continuous months, with the exception of, in between 3 to 4 months, a period from 15th of November till end of February, which was quite good for domestic tourism, the industry has been really on life support. Tourism, practically, when it comes to international, is zero. The borders are still shut. Domestic tourism has been taking charge, mainly driven by leisure. So I think any kind of recovery is welcome. It will take time, but we do hope that towards the middle end of this month, we will start seeing a rise in numbers, as has also been reported in some places in north of India, where the queues to get into states like the Himachal Pradesh, etc., were extremely long because people want to take a break from the summer holiday period with the families.
Right, and we're seeing some green shoots as well. Some major hotels in India are planning investments. Give us a sense of how big these are and how significant that is.
Well, I think the good news is that everyone is convinced about the long-term outlook for the sector. And the sector has proven its resilience over the last century. So hotel investments are, anti-cyclical. It's an opportunity for some to get in at the bottom of the cycle instead of getting in at the top of the cycle. So there is some activity happening. We definitely are looking at some of our strategic projects, strategic brands, and actually are pushing them, and also trying to support some of our new initiatives, which we think will be sustainable and will stay on for long. So I think the positive part is the resilience of the industry, and also the ability to innovate and just keep going on.
And Puneet, I got to ask you, what, I suppose, end of the hospitality scale is doing better than the others? Is the high end outperforming, or is it just your run-of-the-mill hotels which are perhaps seeing a bit more traction?
So that's an interesting question. So when we look at the period between, as I mentioned earlier, between 15th of November till end of February, the high-end hotels performed quite well, especially leisure destinations like Goa, even outperformed themselves in the pre-COVID times. Now, having said that, the lower end hotels are more resilient and people sometimes need to travel also on business at that end. And at that end, the age group is lower, so they are less exposed to the virus versus the elderly ones. And I think that segment definitely did more or less north of 50% for the, I would say, the sector. And in one of our brands, we even touched at that end more than 60% of the revenue to the pre-COVID levels.
Puneet, earlier you talked about taking the opportunity to invest. Are you looking at expanding overseas, for instance?
No, overseas expansion for us will only be opportunistic and very, very selective based on an absolutely asset-light model. 15 years ago or so, we have invested heavily into some of the overseas assets. That's not a part of our strategy. Our strategy in the last few years has been to focus on our domestic market and have selective growth in the international market. So we have opened, for example, our second hotel in Dubai. We'll be opening a third hotel in Dubai. If something comes up in the UK or where there is a strong Indian diaspora, we would go in those markets. But I think being leaders in the hospitality sector in India, having the largest pan-India footprint of more than 150 hotels in operation, we don't want to risk that position. We want to continue to lead on the South Asian front and have selective growth based on really very good and compelling opportunities to grow internationally.